What is going on, coaches? I hope you're having an awesome day. Inside of this YouTube video today, I'm going through my content marketing framework that I teach my clients inside of the Lifestyle Wealth Mastermind. And I'm viewing it through the lens of what's working now inside of 2026. And to be able to balance audience growth and lead generation with being able to have powerful conversations, send value videos, and then actually be able to acquire coaching clients. Being able to do both at once is something that I see being more and more important in the industry and how things are trending, especially as of recent. And inside of today's training, I give you the full playbook in terms of content you can create, how to understand the 5 different levels of awareness in terms of where your ideal client is at so that you can create content for them based off of where they're at psychologically, and make sure that you're consistently signing a constant stream of clients coming into your coaching business. So with that being said, guys, I hope you enjoy this training. If you want to inquire about what the Lifestyle Wealth Mastermind actually looks like, you can also do that. I'll have a link down below to book in a quick call with me or just check out a video in terms of what it looks like. You can get started for $185 a week. And it's a really, really good mastermind, primarily for coaches who want to grow to around 15K per month inside of your practice. So with that being said, guys, I hope you're having an awesome day, and let's get into the training. What I see work very, very well right now inside of the online coaching landscape and how it's changed over the last few years since I've created the EPDO framework. Now, before I get into it, very much what I'm about to talk about is very much in line with this, right? The levels of awareness. Now, I've talked about this before in some different trainings, and I know you guys are familiar, but the levels of awareness is kind of like the guide. It is very much how I created the EPDO framework, but it's also very much the guide in how I created this framework, this updated framework as well, that I'd like you guys to start adapting to over time to start to optimize for growth and start to optimize for the balance between quality and quantity. So EPDO was very quality focused, as you guys know. But this updated training and this updated method that I'm about to walk you guys through, it's optimizing for slightly more quantity as well to be able to balance that out. Because these are some, let's say, slight tweaks and adjustments that I'm seeing inside of the industry that I think can help you guys attract more quality to you, right? This is an interesting quote, but something I heard a few years ago, and it definitely lands true to a certain extent, is the root to quality is through quantity. As wild as that sounds. Like David, you're a perfect example of it. I don't know, I forget how many conversations you had, but maybe it was like 40 or 50. And you got a couple great client from that ad, right? But we needed to optimize, we needed to get conversations going, we needed to get, send value videos until we found that one. And that's definitely something that I see ring more and more true. Don't get me wrong, there's always a Bill, right, who pays 11K in cash, LV, here and there. But we also need to make sure that we have kind of like the faucet, if you will, of turning the leads on and getting a good influx of ideal types of clients inquiring for our services. Now, yeah, don't get me wrong, we need to sift and sort through it from time to time to make sure that we're talking to the right kinds of people. But we do want to make sure that we're getting a constant stream of leads inside of our coaching businesses, because that's what's going to keep us in business, right? So that's primarily what I'm talking about today. And you guys have already seen this type of graphic, but this is what I see. And I don't care what type of coach I'm working with or what kind of business owner I'm working with. If I look at their audience, if it's on Instagram, if it's an email list, if it's I don't care where it is, this is true for them. You have a certain percentage of your audience that is down here, certain percentage that is here and here and here and here. And then the smallest percentage is at the very tip. And these are the buyers, right? This essentially is like an upside down funnel. But this is exactly what we need to keep in mind when it comes to creating content, because we want to speak to people based off of where they're at, right? For our content. So for example, it would be a mistake to constantly create content for these types of people, because we're segregating everybody here, right? And the goal with content is to be able to ascend people up this pyramid. So they get to the point where they're able to make a qualified buying decision with you, right? Like that's what we want through content. But if we're always doing call to actions, we're always talking about our coaching, we're always sharing social proof. Don't get me wrong, there's a time and place for it, but we're primarily talking to people here where we need to ascend their beliefs, which is what these different levels are here. So to quickly go through this, guys, before I get into different types of content that I think would do very well for you, is the bottom here, and this is like 60% of your audience right now. This is unaware. These are people who are unaware that they even have a problem, right? They know something's off. They know maybe they're not, if we're talking about health and fitness, they're not as healthy as they should be. They know there's something going on, but they don't know what it is, right? Like they can't put their finger on it. They do a little bit of research here, listen to a podcast here, but like they have no idea really what the crux of the issue is, and they don't have education around it. This is like probably a good percentage of most of your audiences is people who are just like, they're not even close to making a qualified buying decision with you because they don't really have education on their problem and what's going on. These types of people, we do want to create content too periodically, but it's very different types of content versus people who are up here, right? Like extremely different. And that's what I want to walk you through today is just understanding the difference in content to make sure that we're speaking to people based off of where they're at. Problem aware people. So these are people who understand like, hey, I have 20 pounds to lose, and they're understanding why this issue got created, right? They're looking for starting to look for a solution. They're starting to listen to podcasts. They're starting to do some research into next steps, right? Like they're pretty clear on what's going on, or they want to know a little bit more about why they have this problem. And they're starting to think, okay, how am I going to solve this? Right? Like what exactly does this look like? And this is normally 20% of your audience, right? So that's already a huge jump, right? I just went from 60% to 20%. That's already a huge jump. So that should tell you and give you an indication of, okay, when I create content up here, the reason why it gets less engagement versus sharing a photo of my dog, and like talking about some stuff that is more surface level is because this is most of your audience, right? Like this is most of your attention. Whereas when we get all the way up here and you do like, let's say a call to action for one-on-one coaching or whatever it may be, that's only like 3% of your audience. And actually in more cases, it's less than that for a lot of the coaches that I work with. So it's just understanding, okay, how can I make sure I'm creating content based off of where the attention is that I have in my audience, and what exactly does that look like? So problem aware is 20%. And then we've got solution aware. So this is 10%. So these are people who they know what their problem is. They know they've been struggling for a few years probably, and they're actively looking for a solution. So what do I mean by actively? I mean, they are following other coaches, right? And you're probably one of the coaches that they're following. They're listening to podcasts, like they're listening to maybe the Huberman podcast. They're listening to, Peter Attia or whatever it may be, like some big names inside of the space. And they're trying to understand what the path forward is going to look like in order to solve the problem that they know that they have, okay? So when it comes to lead quality, these types of people are a lot more valuable than the people down here, right? And what I mean by more valuable is just they're closer to making a buying decision with you, right? Because they have good education on the problem. Like David, for example, when we're running some ads and we're getting people in who are here, as you know, it's going to take a little bit of time, right? Before we can even really send a value video or make an offer, because they need to understand what's going on. They need to have education around what exactly their problem is specific to them. And then they're receptive to a solution, right? A big mistake I see a lot of coaches make is that they try to talk about their solution before your ideal client is even educated on what problem that they have, right? So that's kind of trying to like shove a square peg inside of a round hole. We need to go through this sequentially, and it's not just health coaching. This is almost any like big ticket item that you can sell in life. They're going to ascend these different levels of awareness, okay? So about 10% of your audience is solution aware, and they're actively looking for something. Then we've got 7%, And honestly, this is actually less in a lot of audiences. This is probably more like 4 or 5%. But these are people who know what your product is, right? Like David, they know your specific protocol, right? Because you've been talking about it. Alvi, they know the synergistic method, right? Like they're aware of it because they've seen it a couple of times, or they're starting to listen to your podcast. They listen to a couple of pillars around what the synergistic method is. These are people who are looking for a solution, but they also are aware what your system is, and they're starting to learn about it, right? They're starting to learn about how it can work potentially for them, how different pieces of social proof that you're sharing, and they're seeing how it works for other people who are just like them. These are very, very valuable ideal clients, but these ideal clients are created, right? Like usually they don't come into your ecosystem already product aware. These are usually people who have been in your audience, right? Like for the last 6 months or whatever that time period might be. But they've warmed up to you, so to speak, right? Like they've warmed up to your system. They've warmed up to who you are as a coach. They've seen some social proof and they understand how your coaching works and how it could potentially work for them. And then we have people who are most aware. Most aware is these are people who are very, very close to making a qualified buying decision, or maybe they opted into something before and they just didn't buy for whatever reason, or they had some sort of objection, or maybe they did buy, like, for example, your $97 health map call back in December, whatever it may be. These are people who have ascended the entire pyramid and they know they have a problem. They're looking for a solution. They know what your solution is and they know how it can potentially work for them. And they're essentially on the fence. Like they're about to sign on with you or not, but they're like right there, right? This is between 1 to 3% of all of your audiences right now in this given moment. Like there's always 3% of people who will probably buy from you immediately because they're here, right? And they're just waiting for the right offer, waiting for the right conditions, they're waiting for you to help them overcome whatever ABC objection. These are the types of people who, this is where you're going to make your money, essentially. For me to call a spade is they need to be here. Again, before I move forward, the biggest mistake I see a lot of coaches make is that they're trying to sell people here, right? Or they're trying to sell people here. And we need to ascend them up here. So to give you an example, how the value video is strategically designed, as you guys know, because you're all experts on it now, how do we start value videos, right? What do we talk about? We talk about the overall problem, right? And this is because this is how human psychology works. And then we talk about your solution and how you created your problem, or sorry, how you created your solution to solve the problem you just talked about, right? And then we talk about how your solution can work for the individual that you're speaking to, right? So we're making it specific for them. We're not just saying pillar one, pillar two, pillar three. We're saying, hey, Bill, here's how pillar one can work in your life. Here's how pillar two can work in your life. And then we talk about let's book in a call or whatever your call to action is. So the value video is a great like microcosm, if you will, on how you can ascend this pyramid very, very fast. But we just need to make sure that we're meeting people in the right spot. That's one of the biggest things here. So how does this work as it pertains to content, right? And how does this work with some tweaks and adjustments that I want to make to the EPDO method to make sure that we're also solving for some consistent growth, right? In terms of what's working now and what's not working. So this is something I want you guys to take a screenshot of. This is the exact same format of the EPDO method. There's just a couple of slight tweaks and adjustments in terms of how we create content and what we can potentially use for ads. So this is a hybrid method, right? What I mean by hybrid is we start with organic content first, and then essentially we just choose the winners that are doing well organically, and then we can either boost them or we can run them as ads. And I'm going to walk you through this today. But first things first, you can still very much start with one overall topic, right? Like what is the topic you guys want to talk about for any particular week? And you can start with that and you can brain dump that or get AI or Claude or whatever to help you with that. Put it inside of a Google Doc And then you've also got your long form content, depending on if you want it to be a podcast, you want it to be a YouTube video. You still very much want to kind of direct your thoughts into one central theme because that helps you guys stay consistent and less scattered with content. I'm very much a big believer of that. And then we can get into our short form from there, right? And exactly what that looks like. So, in terms of using the 5 levels of awareness through content, and let's just talk about Instagram or Facebook as an example, because that's primarily what most of my clients use. If we're going to create some unaware style content, this would probably be a reel or a carousel and a really easy one, like a B-roll style reel with a hook, right? And essentially what we want to show, just like I've written here, is what is like a normal moment in their life that they're experiencing where they don't know that they have an issue, but they do, right? And how can we shine a light on that? Like you might think this ABC feeling is normal, but really it's a sign of XYZ, right? And you guys can talk about whatever topic it is that relates to your coaching and relates to your ideal client. But this is helping unaware ideal clients like realize, hey, things can be better, or you actually do have a serious issue, right? And we're helping them understand that and what that looks like, and then taking them to the next rung here when it comes to levels of awareness. So, like I said, these can be good reels, they can be good carousels, but essentially, we just want to educate your ideal client on they might mistakenly think XYZ is normal, but really it's a sign of ABC. And that's just one example of a hook, but that's what unaware, that's how we can talk to unaware ideal clients in your audience. And this type of content is going to do the best for you, right? Not because like the content's the best, but because the audience that it's going to relate to is the most, right? Like I said, this is like 50 or 60% of your audience. And these types of content work really well for follower ads, follower-based ads, because again, it's relatively surface level in terms of it can speak to the level of awareness for a large amount of people within your niche. And then we can direct that attention to your profile. So these types of follower ads, to kind of piggyback off what Kayla taught us a couple of weeks ago, these types of follower ads can work really good. It's just let's test a couple of unaware style reels or unaware style carousels, see which one works the best for you organically, and then let's pick the best one and let's boost it for $10 a day and bookend the description by saying, hey, follow at Alvy Thompson for more information on this, right? And then boom, we've got a follower ad. So this is how we can kind of create content based off of levels of awareness through a hybrid style of marketing as well, because we can boost some of these posts to grow our audience slightly. So that's unaware. Problem aware is going a little bit deeper. These are kind of similar, but going a little bit deeper in terms of like educating them on what the problem is, right? So like here we're just bringing attention to like, hey, you have a problem. And then here we're talking about here's what the problem actually is, and here's how it's showing up in your life, right? So again, going back to the value video, when we introduce the overall problem and then we talk about the symptoms of the problem, right, and how it's showing up inside of your ideal clients' lives, this is really good types of content to create for these people as well. Like, what exactly is that issue? How can we help them understand it deeper? Like a basic example that I was working on with a client was you might think you have, let's say, 20 pounds of body fat specifically in your, let's say, lower midsection that you think you need to lose, which is true. But the real issue is that your cortisol levels, specifically in the morning, are all jacked up. And here's why. And here's why you're storing body fat inside of this certain area, right? Whether or not you agree with that or not, what I'm saying is I'm helping them understand the problem they think they have, and then I'm going even deeper into the root cause, right, on what that looks like. Or it's like for a 40-plus-year-old man, you're trying to build muscle so hard and you're working out more and you're eating all the protein, you're in a caloric surplus, you're tracking your calories, you're sleeping well, and you're unsure what's going on, when in reality, your testosterone levels are low, and that blah, 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 and you get into it. So essentially, we're taking what they think the problem is, and we're just going one or two levels deeper to help them understand what that looks like even more, to see you as the authority, right? To see you as the type of coach who is positioning yourself like, hey, I see this problem all the time. I see this problem with my clients all the time. And then it's a natural transition to this, which is solution aware. But again, for problem aware style reels or ads or carousels, whatever it may be, these are good posts to boost for more so follower ads, right? Like follow for more, follow for more. So again, kind of what I'm doing here is these two styles of posts that you guys can create inside your content. In terms of putting some money behind them, it's more so follower based, right? It's not necessarily like DM based. It's not necessarily like apply for coaching, because as I just walked you through in terms of the pyramid, they're at the bottom of the pyramid. So they still need a little bit of time before I want you guys spending any time on them in terms of education, in terms of sending value videos, things like this. This is just more so for audience growth and making sure that you're building your following with ideal clients, essentially. And that's the major change to EPDO. Everything else is rather the same, but starting to create content like this to optimize for growth and just more so attention is essentially what these two styles of posts are. This is optimizing for leads and optimizing for clients. These style of posts are optimizing more so for attention, which I hate to say it, but it just is what it is. Like, before we get clients and before we even get leads, we first need attention, right? And it just is what it is. So this optimizes for that. Does that make sense? Yeah, cool. So that optimizes for that. I'm about to get into examples in a second here too, guys. And then we got solution aware content. So this is you guys essentially talking about what are different paths that they can go down to solve their problem, right? Like, yeah, you could do more cardio, or you could strength train, or you could do a bit of both. And here's probably the best option for you, right? So like, before you're even talking about your XYZ system, you first want to help them understand why they should apply kind of the nature of your XYZ system, right? So like, for example, one of my clients, Jason Brown, you guys know Jason, he's big on full body movements, right? And he has a conjugate method around full body, a training style. Well, before he can talk about his XYZ method of full body training style, he first needs to sell his client, which are busy professional men, 40 plus. He first needs to sell them on why is full body training optimal for them, right? Before he talks about his XYZ system, right? So we need to do that. Or like, for example, for you, Alvi, why do we need to, before we talk about the synergistic method, we first need to educate your following on here's why you need to get blood work, right? Because without it, you're in the dark, right? So it's like understanding how we can optimize, okay, what is the solution to this problem, and how are we going to set up your like education around what your product is and what your method is. This is exactly what we want to do here. So once we start creating reels or carousels around this style post, and I'm really big on these style posts, like I teach them all the time. I've got a lot of different templates on them. And like you guys on this call, David and Alvi, like you guys have created some really good posts around this too. Like for example, David, the ad you're running is essentially this, right? It's essentially talking about a potential solution and then to DM you to learn more about the solution, right? That's essentially the ad that you're running. And that brings me to my point here is that creating organic content in solution aware, if it's something that does well for ads, if it does well for organic engagement, then we can boost it for ads, right? Or we can run an ad to it. And this, I like to run to DMs because these people are a little bit more educated, right? In terms of their sophistication level on potentially being a client, and they're looking for a solution. So essentially, we want to engage in a DM conversation with them to educate them on more information around what a solution could be, right? So these style ads are really good for DM and like a private one-on-one conversation, and nothing sets up a value video opportunity better than you talking about your solution, right? And having a conversation around that. So that's solution-based content. Then we got product-aware content, and this is them like wanting to know more about your system, right? This is you talking about the synergistic method. This is you talking about your exact ABC protocol and how it works. This is you talking about social proof and how your ABC system worked for Jack, it worked for Jerry, it worked for Julie. This is you going really deep in terms of your system and how it works, potentially. These are really good for carousel style ads, social proof style content. And again, if something like this really pops off for you organically, I would run a DM ad towards it, and to have some sort of a call to action where they can get more information, they can get an assessment, whatever it may be. And then we've got most aware. Most aware essentially is someone who's like about to buy, just like I said. And this is where I would do direct call to actions. So this would be you calling in clients, for example. This would be even if you had like let's say a bridge offer, like a low ticket offer, just to generate some more interest, like the health map strategy. You could call in clients for that. This is very much your calling people into the next step to potentially make a decision and invest in themselves, right? And go all in on their health and fitness. That's what this style content is. Now, as you can see, and I'm about to get into it in some examples I'm about to share, but in terms of content, you're probably going to make posts like this maximum once a week. In fact, what I recommend is actually probably bi-weekly. Because it's just such a small percentage of your audience that is close to making a buying decision with you. And then it kind of goes up from there, right? Like product aware content, I'd probably make one post a week. Solution aware content, I'd probably make one post a week. And then problem aware and unaware, I might make like 2 posts a week on each of these topics and have fun with it. You know, like you can have fun with it too, because there's not a lot of pressure with this stuff, because it's just more so growth oriented in order to feed attention to everything else that you guys are doing, right? So this is kind of a different take on the EPDO method, and just the similar flow in terms of how it works, and starting with one main topic and then going for long form and then breaking it up into short form. But the biggest thing that the EPDO method lacked was growth, and I'm making up for it here in terms of audience growth, right? And lead gen. And this is something that can really help. So to give you guys some examples specifically of these two, but I'm going to show you all of them. This is one of my clients, Elise. She's literally just, and this is what I mean by have fun with it, right? Like she's literally at Starbucks, obviously, just got a coffee. She just filmed like a quick, like little tiny reel for 15 seconds. And this is very much unaware, right? So these are people who they might know something's up, but they're not sure that like what issue they have or what exactly is going on inside of their body. And Elise just made like a quick talk to camera reel, educating her following on this, and really good hook. Doctors will hate me for saying this, but I'm saying it anyway. And then she's just talking about like, she works primarily with middle-age perimenopause or menopausal women. And she's talking about like, hey, these feelings and like these symptoms that your doctor is telling you is normal is actually not. And here's why, and blah, blah, blah. And then she gets into it, right? So this is a really good example of creating content for unaware ideal clients, because they can still be really, really good clients at this level, but they know something's going on and they're not sure what's going on, right? They don't have education around it. And creating content like this usually does the best organically, just like I said, because you're just going to get the most amount of attention, because this is where the majority of your audience lays, is unaware and problem aware style content. So coming up with like 2 to 3 different variations of a hook like this and creating one reel around it, creating one carousel around it, and seeing what works well for you, specifically for the ideal client that you're speaking to, obviously, is important. And this is unaware style content. And this is what can help with growth. This is what can help with getting more eyeballs essentially inside of your social media profiles. Now, another one would be something like this, right? So this is Elise as well. She's talking about, are you tired AF? And she's speaking to, hey, this isn't like a mindset problem. Like this isn't something you need to power through. This is a hormone problem. And this is what nobody's telling you, but this is what's going on. So this is still, I would say, unaware because they have a certain feeling, right? They know something's up, but they're not sure why. They're not sure what's going on. And this is a really good carousel around, hey, this is how you're feeling. You might think it's normal just because you're getting older or whatever it may be. But here's why you need to fix it. And then boom, she's getting into it in her swipe carousel. So again, some things like this do very well because a lot of people can relate. And then it's getting more eyeballs. And if it's something that does unusually well, we can boost it and get more attention inside your Instagram. So those are a couple of just examples of unaware style content, but something that you guys can create in your own way as well. And then we've got problem aware. So this is Jason Brown. Very, very easy piece of B-roll reel to create. Literally, he just set up his tripod and he is putting a weight plate back. Like that's all he's doing. It's literally like 10 seconds. No, not even 10 seconds, like 5 seconds. But anyway, he's speaking to what his ideal client is probably making a mistake on, right? So they know they have an issue. They're actively trying something like kind of what you said at the top of this call, Alvi, in terms of what Bill might be doing. But he's educating them on why this isn't the answer or why this isn't working for you, right? So like his ideal client is men 40 plus, like busy professional men. He's talking about more volume is not the answer after 40. Here's why it can work against you. Okay. So really, really good reel on education on the problem and going deeper with them. Like, hey, here's the root cause, not the surface level. Don't just throw spaghetti against the wall and exhaust yourself in the gym. Here's what you should really be doing after 40. Right. So he's going to, like, the people who watch this reel, they're now a lot more receptive to the solution, which is his coaching system, right? But first he needs to educate them on probably what they're doing wrong. So for you guys, it's the same thing. Whoever your ideal client is what is a problem that they're going through, and how are they trying to fix it that is a mistake, right? And how can we educate them on that in your own style, right? Like some coaches are more direct, some coaches are more balance, let's say, in terms of what they're for, what they're against. But what does this look like for you? Really, really good pieces of content to create. Another good example for problem aware is something like this, right? Especially for high performers, especially for, I work with a lot of clients who their ideal clients are high performers in whatever domain in their life. And some really good, this is more of like a recent trend, but some really, really good information on this is talking about the biological cost of having a stressful career or a demanding career and what that looks like on your body and how you can help them understand what a solution could look like based off this problem. Right? Because again, a lot of people mistakenly think like, oh, I'm just getting older, just need to power through, blah, blah, blah. But really, like there's more of a methodical, specific way you can actually solve that problem. So how can we educate our clients on that? Because again, big mistake I see a lot of coaches make is they're just trying to like shove solutions down their ideal clients' throats without proper education on the unique problem that they have. Right. So that's exactly what this is here is understanding, okay, how can we educate your ideal clients on the unique problem that they have in a way where they get an epiphany moment because you help them understand the root cause, not just the surface level. And now all of a sudden you've got their attention to help them understand a solution. right? And that's why we want to go deep on problem-centric content. So again, if a carousel like this did well organically, I'd probably boost it for follower ads, right? And then slowly grow your audience with this type of post. So that's problem aware. Now we're starting to transition into solution. So this is a good example from Rachel Shear. This is a carousel that she made, and she's talking about 4 body composition blind spots that most health coaches overlook. So very specific in terms of a solution, right? She's talking about most health coaches overlook. So if you've hired a health coach or you're looking for health coaches, a lot of health coaches gloss over these certain elements. And then she's talking about it inside of her carousel. And then she's obviously saying, here's why I don't gloss over this, right? And then here's what we do inside of Rachel Shear coaching, blah, blah, blah. And then she gets into it. So she's speaking to her ideal client who are looking into coaches, right? And she's educating them on potential blind spots other coaches have because they don't have her level of education or her level of understanding gut health, which is more so her niche, and how this impacts your entire system, right? So this is really important. She's speaking to the level of awareness of her ideal client and then positioning what her potential solution could be as the best fit for her ideal client. So same thing with you guys is how can we educate our audience on, hey, here's what most coaches do, but here's what I do, right? Here's what most coaches, like a plan most coaches get their clients on, but here's what I do in the first week, and here's how it's different. Before you even talk about your XYZ system, right? This is stuff that's really important because these are really high quality. Like if you have attention of people at this level, it's really high quality attention. Like they could become a buyer in a matter of days. Like going from unaware to problem aware, sometimes that's months, unfortunately. But going from solution aware to you aware to buying aware, that can happen in a matter of days, like very, very fast. So making sure that we're good with this type of content is key. Then we got product aware. So this is you, like how does your system work? What is your system? Social proof is the best kind of content here. You could also have different like educational style reels or carousels, like talking about your unique system and how your system works in pillar 1, pillar 2, pillar 3. But to keep it the most fresh, it's probably going to be social proof and how your system worked in your ideal clients' lives. And this is pretty self-explanatory stuff. Nothing really has changed here over many, many years in terms of social proof content and its power. But it's just making sure that we're speaking to the right people at the right time. And then we got buying aware, right? So this is one of my clients, Shannon Logan. You guys know this is one of my templates. David, I think you just ran this a couple of days ago too, in terms of taking on your next batch of one-on-one coaching clients. And you're speaking to, like I said, between 1% to 3% of your attention on your social media or your leads with these types of posts. So that's why these would be like the most scarce types of posts I would program, right? Like I would program these types of posts probably once a month or bi-weekly at the most, right? These are for people who are really, really bought in to who you are, what you do, how you can help them. And it's the least amount of attention that you get. And it's probably going to be the worst amount of interaction and engagement that you're going to get. But we need to make it known we're a coach for hire periodically, right? And we want to make sure that we're calling in clients after we get a lot of people at these different levels of awareness over time through our content marketing. So this is kind of the flow. And then what I would also do, not to throw too much at you guys, but what I would also do is every single Sunday or whatever your client check-in day is, if it's Fridays, if it's Thursdays, like I've worked with clients who have check-in days on any day of the week. Make sure that you're sharing some client results on your stories, if it's Instagram or Facebook. Or both, honestly. Make sure that you're sharing some proof. Like this is one of my clients, Tim. as you can see, he's sharing kind of the trainerized weight graph and giving a little bit of context around it as well. You guys are already doing this, right? Like you're already doing this. Like you have to do your client check-ins. That's a must for you, right? You may as well share it. You may as well share what you're already doing. And I talk about this all the time, but some of the best content is actually not creating, it's actually sharing what you're already doing, right? We're just kind of like showing what you're already doing. And sometimes we need to be reminded of this. Like I know I'm teaching this stuff, and I need to be reminded of it from time to time too. Like, oh shit, I should share that. I should share that. So even having like a little sticky note on your computer or whatever it may be, when you guys are doing your client check-ins, and just remind yourself to share a little something from it. It actually goes a long way. It very, very much does. And some of your clients need to see some wins 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 times, right? Before they take that next action. And if you're not providing that to them, then you're just yourself a disservice, because you're probably already doing your client check-ins and you're probably seeing a lot of client wins that you're just not sharing in the best way. So having a process to do this at least once a week is definitely what I would recommend. So that's a little bit about levels of awareness and some tweaks and adjustments that I would make to your content strategy this particular year, and kind of some like updates that I've seen on social media over the last, like I said, 6 months or so. So based off this, what should your weekly cadence be, right? Like I just threw a lot of information at you guys in terms of some updates I would do. What would an optimal weekly cadence be? Now, it depends where you're at right now, right? Like if you want to focus on audience growth, or you're going really deep into some sort of promo strategy, like it depends what exactly the goals are. But generally, like for a general rule of thumb, based off what I just taught, this is what I would strive for weekly, is something along these lines. Is for your unaware and problem aware posts, I try and make 2 of these per week because they're pretty easy to make and you don't need to go too deep. I would try and make 2 a week because the more that you have here too, you can understand what works and what doesn't work. And then the winners, like the ones that do work well, you can boost for audience growth, right? But kind of to my point at the very top of this training, we need a little bit of quantity with this to make sure that we're understanding, what works and what doesn't work, and we're putting in those reps. So the most amount of frequency I would actually make are content around these 2 rungs of levels of awareness. And then when it comes to solution and product aware, I would just make 1 post per week for both of these. This would probably be more call to action related, like to get someone to opt in for more information. And then for buying aware posts, like I said, this would be bi-weekly or monthly. Calling in clients, talking about how you're taking on your next 3 clients in April, whatever it may be. That's the cadence I would have here. And then for stories, I would share on your check-in days, minimum once a week, some of the results that your clients are seeing. This essentially gives us content for every single stage of awareness that I just walked you through. And what I would do here, guys, is as best as possible, I would plan this out. And you can plan this out on the Meta Business Suite in terms of your Facebook, your Instagram content. Like I wouldn't, if I were you, I wouldn't like create content like this weekly in terms of 2 unaware posts, 1 solution aware post, 1 product aware post, 1 call to action. What I would do is if I'm going to sit down, I'm going to create, let's say 14 unaware posts, like in 1 sitting, right? And 14 problem aware posts in 1 sitting. And then my next sitting, I'm going to create 4 or 5 solution aware posts in 1 sitting. Right. And then I'm going to schedule that all out, because if you're going to make 1 solution aware post, just as an example, you may as well, if it's ChatGPT or Claude or whatever AI you guys are using, you may as well just in that same sitting, to make the most of your time, because I know content can be a time suck. You may as well use AI to help you create 3 or 4 different variations of it, get it done in that same sitting, and then just schedule it out. So then you don't have to like every single week be like have this doom feeling with content. And then you got to create it, you got to make it, and all these different elements. I would almost like batch create some of these individual posts in one sitting at a time, and then you guys are ahead, right? And then you guys are creating content for May, for June, and it's a lot easier that way when you can schedule it out. Like if you guys get nothing from this training today, but you only get one thing, scheduling out your social media posts can be a godsend just in terms of efficiency, and making sure that you guys save your brain power for the most important tasks in your business, which is like conversations, sending value videos, sales calls, and coaching. This stuff you can definitely get ahead of the game on, just takes obviously foresight and proper planning. So that would be an example of a weekly cadence I would run if I were you guys and I was focused on growth, right? I wanted clients, but I also wanted to grow my social media. I also wanted to get more ideal client eyeballs in my following, friends list, whatever it may be. Then this would be an example weekly cadence I would do. And then based off of the winners for these particular posts, I would boost, right? So these two would be more follower growth ad centric, and then solution aware and potentially product aware would be more DM ad centric. And David, you're a perfect example of a DM ad that's working well for what this is. So you're essentially being efficient with everything that you're doing, right? Because you can get your ads rolling based off what's working well. You've got your organic rolling, and you're slowly growing your audience, but then you're also having powerful conversations, sending value videos, calling in clients, sharing social proof in your check-in days, and essentially doing everything that you can, right? In terms of what's working best inside of 2026 in the current buying landscape. So that was a lot. And that's all I got for you today in terms of some tweaks and adjustments to content marketing. Um, but biggest thing, guys, before I turn it over to questions, biggest thing with this stuff is do market research, right? Like obviously I just gave you a bunch of different examples here based off what some of my clients are doing. Um, I know this is kind of like weird advice to give, but what I would do is I would set, like, you definitely want to have boundaries with this, but I would set, like, if it's half an hour every other week to like literally scroll, and I normally don't give this type of advice, but like scroll on Instagram or on Facebook and look at like what's working and what's not working. And then type of content or carousels or whatever it may be that really speaks to you. I would copy and paste those links, and then I would just create similar things in your own way, right? This is what some of my most successful clients do is they see what's working well in their space, and then they'll create it in their own way. They're not copying it. They just create it in their own way. They put a different spin on it. It's a different hook. And obviously it's them versus someone else. And they just created it in their own way, right? Because the answers are all out there. We just need to be able to use it in your language for who your ideal client is, for what your offer is. And it's easier than you think. It just takes obviously foresight and carving out the time to be able to do so. So anyway, guys, any questions that you have for me before